So I grew up Presbyterian, and I would say growing up, I was always very involved in my faith. My family, we were the type of family that would go to church every Sunday, but never really practiced at home. And but I had awesome like Sunday school teachers and other people in my life that helped me develop a relationship with Christ at a really young age. So I was always very involved. And then we moved to Colorado. We went to a bunch of new churches, all different denominations. And I eventually found a super awesome youth group. And around the same time when I was going to that youth group, which was a Protestant denomination, my best friend, one of my best friends at the time, was Catholic, and so her mom wanted to invite me to a Catholic program called Totus Tuus, and I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's basically a youth program. Yeah,
yeah. To be honest, I'm not actually super familiar with it, but yeah, go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So it's a youth program, basically. An evening type of thing where I play games and there's missionaries.
Is this for high schoolers, like middle schoolers, or is this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, middle school and high school, and then there's a day program for elementary.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's an awesome program. So my friend took me to that program, and at first I kind of was able to blend in because I actually went to Catholic school as a kid when I was not Catholic.
Gotcha.
So I kind of knew like basic, I knew the Hail Mary, I knew basic Catholic type of things. But I had never really understood the teaching on the Eucharist. And so one of the missionaries, when she gave her talk, she explained her family's conversion and how that was really all about the Eucharist. So that really, it really intrigued me, and I related to her a lot. And then we went into Adoration, which I had never been to before. And I just remember like being in prayer and asking Jesus, like, could this really be you up on the altar? And because, right, it just looked like a piece of bread. And I had just heard that Catholics believed that the Eucharist is the true body and blood, soul, and divinity of Jesus. And so
was that your first time hearing that? Like that?
Yeah,
that moment?
that was the first time I ever remember hearing that. Yeah, and which is just crazy. But yeah, so I was just praying, and I just kept asking Jesus over and over again, could this really be you? And I went to the back of the church, and I had some of the missionaries pray over me. And by the end of the prayer, this realization had hit me, and I realized that that was the truth, and that Jesus really was up on that altar. And so that really is what started my conversion. And then from there, I just started researching. In the beginning, it really was more about the Eucharist, and especially the biblical basis of it. And then later on, I went back to Totus Tuus the following year. And later on, I actually had an experience as a non-Catholic in confession, and that drew me even further. Yeah, so then I started researching and realized I had a lot of misconceptions about Catholicism in general. And eventually I went through RCIA, and I entered the church Easter of my senior year of high school.
Wow. And just for my own sake and timeline, so you said you came into the church your senior year of high school. When was your experience at Totus Tuus when you had this encounter with Jesus and the Eucharist?
Oh, yeah. So that was going into my sophomore year of high school.
Okay, gotcha.
So it was a few years. Yeah. And I went through RCA my junior year, actually. So it's a little confusing timeline-wise.
Gotcha. Okay. So, but it all started with that experience of the Eucharist.
Yeah.
So when you left that, you said you immediately were like, you felt like something in your heart. It was an interior sort of like thing. It wasn't an intellectual like process of that's Jesus, but it was something the Spirit moved your heart is kind of what you're saying. Of
Definitely.
That is Jesus. So I'm curious, when you kind of came out of that, did you start like kind of doubting afterwards? Like, oh, wait a minute, was that experience real, or was that just my emotions? Like, walk me through that process of like that intellectual maybe sort of, response. I don't know. That's how I feel like I would act. I feel like I would be like, okay, one thing's emotions, but now let's see, is that actually true? Like scripturally and intellectually,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely have had that feeling. I think initially I was just in so much awe. And I remember just asking my Catholic friend afterwards, so you really believe that that's the body and blood of Jesus? And she just said, yes, yes, over and over again. But I think, researching the biblical basis really did help me. And I learned a lot about John 6 and, and just that was the more intellectual piece of it for me.
Yeah.
And I think that really solidified it pretty early on. It was actually, I would say, later, after I had told that story, my conversion, like quite a few times, that I would have that thought, like, oh, wow, was that just an experience? Because it was almost further from when I had first experienced it. So,
okay.
Yeah. But I mean, I trust that experience and then my further research into it as well.
Yeah, it's so beautiful because I feel like that's it's such a cool example of how faith is really a gift, and it's not something that we earn, right? And I feel like I'll be honest with you, I feel like I can be pretty intellectual about the faith to where that's a temptation sometimes to not be aware that hang on. You didn't smart your way into believing or to trusting God or having this faith, but rather it was a gift. So I think it's really apparent in that story, as you're saying, it wasn't until later. It wasn't until, I don't know how long after, but it wasn't until later that you actually felt the need to okay, I want to go deeper now, but you already believed, which is really, really cool. And I feel like most Catholics today, obviously, statistically, don't believe in the real presence of Jesus in the Eucharist.
Right.
And they've had how many masses that they've probably been to and been told, probably, maybe not, but you'd think, told that that's Jesus in the Eucharist and still lack the faith. So of course, for some reason, God obviously chose to reveal himself to you in that way. Thank you for watching this clip. You can click here to watch the full episode or here to watch another clip I think you might enjoy. With that said, before you go, if you want to support the Catechism Guy, please consider clicking that subscribe button and then the bell, and that way YouTube will have to let you know every time we release a new video.